Hi there, welcome to week 2. Oh my goodness, things move quickly in the summer. There are probably going to be at least 2 videos for this week because there's quite a lot to cover and the things that you probably have never dealt with before. So I'll get started on this and then we'll see how it goes. I won't make any of these videos longer than 15 or 20 minutes. But before I talk about Unit 2, which is this one, feature article, I just wanted to do a little bit of administrative housekeeping. I'm doing this on Sunday afternoon, and I haven't actually looked at the things that are in the Portrait of a Word folder in the Google Drive, but there have been some really interesting discourse communities discussed and put up on the Padlet and open lab posts and that kind of stuff. So pretty interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing them. If you haven't checked out the discourse community Padlet, it's actually right here. There's quite a few really interesting things. I love this one, Women in STEM. That's a cause that's close to my heart, even though I'm really lousy at all of that stuff, because I think it's important that young women do this kind of thing. This is really fascinating. But there's a lot of really good discourse communities, so you might check them out. This one I actually crochet. I'm actually part of that community, so I'm looking forward to that one. But there's things that I don't know about, which is one of the reasons I really like the discourse community, this particular assignment, because I always learn stuff. So that's due on Monday night at midnight. The low, what we call low stakes activities, the things that you do to lead up to doing the article, they're due also by midnight on Monday. After that, I won't look at them; they won't count. And those are the 2 things on Perusall, the Meltzer thing, and then the 2 pieces, the Foucault and the Pericles. There's an open lab post, and then this dashboard. This Padlet. I'm sorry, it has a dashboard. It's this Padlet about what your discourse community is. Anyway, those are what count as participation for Unit 1, and if they don't get in by midnight on Monday, they just won't count. But that's in the syllabus, and that's just how this works. So if you have any questions about any of that stuff, let me know. Send me a text on Slack, and we'll work on that. We'll see what happens, and I'll answer back as quickly as I can. Okay, so Unit 2. Unit 2 is a feature article. Now you're probably going, "Oh, I've never done one of these before." That's true. You probably haven't. You've probably done research. I know you did research if you are doing the new curriculum for English 1101. You had to do a reflective annotated bibliography. This is not that, but it uses some of those skills about how to analyze a source in this, but it's a minor part of this. The feature article really is a way for you to tell us, a particular audience that you want to talk to, something that you know something about already. Right? I'm going to go through this stuff fairly quickly. Journalists don't just write about anything. They have what they call a beat. I was a film reviewer, so movies were my beat. My son-in-law is a dance critic for the New York Times, and he writes articles about dance. So that's sort of his beat. And he started off mostly doing tap, and has broadened out into some other interesting things. But that's mostly the tap world is pretty much is his beat, right? So writers tend to have a beat, something that they write about, and something that it's because it's something that they know about, that you either have experience doing it. Like Brian, my son-in-law, started out at taking tap dance when he was in high school because it was a good way to meet girls. That's what he said. And it just kind of kept going from there, and he's written a big book about it, a history of tap dance in the United States, which had never been written before. So, that's his beat, and it grew out of something that he did. So you're going to get to figure out what your specific beat is, what your particular area is, and then kind of showcase your as it says, your unique experience and knowledge. It also includes research, but the research is sort of a way for you to learn more about something you already know a good bit about. So sort of expanding your own knowledge base. Okay. The length is, and then you're going to write it for a specific audience. There's no such thing as an audience of everybody. There just isn't. Even if you're writing to something like the New York Times, they have a specific audience, a specific demographic, which is usually higher education, college degrees are close to a certain income level, they live a certain place, have certain political leanings. So they're not just a general audience, they're the New York Times audience. You can write an article for, say, PC Gamer magazine if you want to, or it could be for Science News or Sports Illustrated or any number of places. But that you have to, pick an audience, and we'll talk about how to look at who the audience is for these publications. And in a minute, I'll show you some ways to kind of approach that if you don't know already. So you're going to be writing something about something you know something about. It could be something from a discourse community you're part of, or it doesn't have to be. It doesn't make a darn bit of difference. And then you're going to learn a little bit more about it and then tell it in a way that's interesting to us. And feature articles always use narrative. They always tell stories about people, right? So we're going to look at that a little bit too. So how do you find your beat? Again, it's something that you know something about. And you kind of take that idea and then you run with it and find something interesting about it. Like there's this one about skateboarding. There's something down here a little bit farther down in this particular assignment sheet that talks about how, it's not just about skateboarding, maybe. That's where you got your start. But the interesting thing that happened in the last Summer Olympics with all the 13-year-old girls who were winning gold medals in the skateboarding thing. So, you could write an article about how the kids, and specifically the young girls, have sort of taken over skateboarding as an international sport. It could be pretty fascinating. So, again, it's just something that you know about. This one says you might read a lot of history books and your beat might be putting current events in a historical perspective. I actually had somebody who did that a couple of terms ago. It was pretty interesting, and it kind of built out of his interest. He had his great-grandfather's, I can't remember how many great-grandfathers, helmet from World War I, and he got really interested in that era. And so he wrote this interesting feature, which I don't have because I had to give it back to him, about the echoes that he saw in current society in the world these days around world that happened sort of prior to World War I. It was pretty fascinating, and he wrote it for New York Times, so it would be for an educated liberal audience. So it's a subject that fits you. It makes you shine. Again, it's your audience, right? Figure out who they are, and then you will be doing research for this, but it's not the kind of research that is peer review. You're not going to go to the databases and the peer reviews unless you've got something scientific and you want to go find something about it. I had a student last year who did something on black holes. He was fascinated with black holes, and he was curious. He was really curious. This was actually for an 1101 class, but he went out and found, and I don't require peer review articles in any of my classes, but he went out and found a couple of things in the astronomy magazines in the library databases that he used to write his article, give a little bit of sort of scientific background to it. But you don't have to. You can use whatever you want to. And during the regular term, we ask you to do some field research. In the summer, there's not really enough time to do that, but you certainly can if you want to. Now, field research includes things like surveys. A student in another instructor's class did a survey. I can't even remember what the topic was now, but she did this Google Forms and did this survey of people about attitudes about fashion in oh, that may have actually been one of you in this class, or maybe somebody else. Anyway, it was this survey that she did, and it was pretty fascinating. A lot of people do interviews. If you know something about a field, but you know that there are people who know a lot more, it's great to do an interview with them. That's one of your sources. You have to have two sources outside yourself for this assignment. One of them can be that interview with somebody who knows a lot about the field. It could be a mentor of yours or somebody in your discourse community, if you want to write about that, who knows a ton about this. Right? You may know somebody, the crochet thing. You may know somebody who is like a master crochet person and actually writes instructions. And you may want to talk to that person about how they do it and how they got involved. And, what does crochet actually... There's some really seriously fascinating crochet things out there, by the way. Just FYI. It's pretty interesting stuff. So it can be anything. It can be things you find online. It can be videos. It can be interviews. So you're going to be doing research for the article, and I'll show you why. in a second. But again, it's not the kind of research you're used to writing. And I'm going to say this now for the first time, and I'll probably say it 47 more times in these videos and in the posts during the week. This is not an academic research report. I do not want an introductory paragraph. Since the beginning of time, people have wanted to put needles to the thread. No. And have a thesis statement at the end of that first paragraph, and 3 paragraphs of examples, and a conclusion paragraph that repeats everything you said before. Okay, that's not this. This is for real people. And what gets real people interested is stories about other people. And I'll go over that again in a minute. But that's what this is. This is not an academic research report. Is that the second or third time I've said it? I don't know. I'm going to say it a lot more, I'm sure. Again, what you'll be graded on, who is your audience, how does it work for that publication? And I'll show you a way to kind of analyze publications, give you a little bit more of a, a head start on that kind of stuff. Why are you doing it? That could be implied. It could be stated out loud. Doesn't matter. Research, again, more about that, is organized. People freak out when they see it's 1,400 to 1,600 words. I have never had anybody have a problem reading that length. Ever. Ever. In fact, half the time people say, how much more over can I go? And you're not going to believe me right now, but trust me, it's not a problem. Okay. So this is some information from a place called Masterclass about writing, feature articles, right? So you can go there and take a look at this. But essentially, this is what a feature article is. It's a news story that goes beyond the facts to weave in a narrative and tell a compelling story. Okay, it's an in-depth look at a particular subject or event or location to audiences. It keeps the audience's, the reader's attention to the end. Oftentimes we'll start with have a narrative, a story about somebody, and it'll start with a little bit about them, and they give us a lot of information. There'll be a little bit more information, and finish with that story about that person. That's sort of a classic, traditional way to do feature stories. It's what I was taught in journalism school, that circular kind of thing. Okay, so that's one way to do it. But feature stories are always they always catch people's interest and compel people to keep reading because it's about somebody, and they're telling a story. And I'll show you examples in a minute, and you're going to read some examples this week, probably in the next couple of days. Okay, they don't have to have anecdotes about the writer, but they can. A lot of times, again, my son-in-law, but the tap dancer, he does feature articles as well as dance reviews. And one feature that he did last summer, in the middle of all this COVID stuff, the American Ballet Theater took it's like their troupe, not the lead dancers, but the next level down, the ones who were learning. And they got on a bus and they did a tour of the Midwest, like Iowa and, Kansas and that kind of stuff. And they put these free ballet programs out in the middle of fields. And so Brian went along with it. They asked Brian if he'd want to go, and he went with them, spent a week with them, and he wrote about what it was like to be on the bus in the summer, putting these dance programs in the middle of the field to audiences who don't really know anything or really care that much about ballet. It was a fascinating story. He also told the story of the company. He had some stories about some of the dancers specifically, and there was a little bit about his own experience. That it was really a fun piece, right? So you can write about yourself in connection with it. You can write about somebody else. Another one that he wrote was about this amazing dancer whose name is Latasha Barnes, and she doesn't just do tap; she does street and does all kinds of stuff. And he wasn't in it hardly at all. I mean, I don't think he used the word "I" at all. But it was a fascinating story about this woman and what she'd gone through. She's a little bitty fireplug of a dancer. She's great stuff. So it was a look at this one person. Okay, it's a human angle about what dance meant to her and did for her. She had a really terrible accident. She recovered from it and has become one of those major, crazy, wonderful dancers who swing and tap and hip hop and all kinds of stuff. Right, so you can approach it from any direction that you want to. See, and those were all part of his same beat, which is tap. How he got involved in the ballet thing, somebody in the company knew him, and they called the Times and said, could Brian come with us? And they said, Brian, you want to go? And he said, sure. So off he went. Okay, so it's, but they were all in his field. Dance is his thing. It's what he does. That's his beat, right? So the more specific you get, the more interesting it is, the more people are going to stay with you. Now, I'm going to show you in a minute in the second video how these things are structured and what each one of these things actually means. But these are the parts of it. An introduction that hooks your reader, a nutshell paragraph, which is also known as the nut graph in the business, that tells your readers early in the article what it's going to be about and why they should care. Then the body of the article with researched evidence, and can have graphs and tables and stuff if you want quotes from people. And then a conclusion that sort of ties it all up together. Again, I'm going to show you all of this in just a second, get into depth in it. Here's the schedule, right? Everything that I'm going to show you in the next video is on the resources page with all this stuff. And so here's the schedule. The most important part of it, most interesting part of it, is this overview and roadmap, which is actually right here. I already downloaded it. And it will guide you through the entire process of writing this feature article. I went to some length to put this together to help you, because especially for the summer, we're not meeting twice a week, so I can't field those kind of questions for the whole class. So it's all here. So step one is deciding what to write. Start with these questions. Right? This is a great list. What I know a lot about, what I'm passionate about is when I start Googling, what do I Google and just don't want to stop, right? I'd go crazy if somebody told me I had to stop doing, or what makes me really angry. Okay, so from that, it should give you something to write about if you're not going to come right out of your discourse community, which is fine. Okay, so it's all about curiosity, and you're not writing an academic persuasive essay. They're boring, right? Don't do that. Writing them person to person. So this is about targeting your audience. New York Times, PC Gamer, right? The pitching your article, I'll get back into, but you're going to pitch your pitch. This is what you do in journalism, is you pitch articles. Film too, you pitch articles. And this is how to pitch one, and I'll go through it a little bit more in the next video. But this is what a pitch looks like. It's got the subject, gives us the hook, a little bit more about it, why it appeals to people, and why you're the best person to write it. So here's a silly example that I wrote. Some more about research. Now you're going to be finding two sources, and one can be an interview, one can be a YouTube video, I don't care. But you're going to do a quick analysis of it, just so you can learn more about who the author is and make sure it's kind of a good source for you to use. And again, this is about how to come up with people to find. And then the first draft, and we write. So this is important piece. It's right here, the overview and roadmap. I actually also put it up on Perusall, so you can ask me questions there. This whole overview thing, right? And this is this is another fairly quick one. You'll be pitching this week, and next week you'll have the article done. Now I'll show you how to use Canva to make it look nice, and I'll probably post that video on Thursday or Friday of this week, but not today, because you're gonna get overwhelmed if I keep talking. And then I'll show you some examples when I do that too, how to make it look like a feature article. So that's the start. Well, I'm gonna stop this video, and then I'm going to get into the specifics of all of this stuff that we're going to be doing. Be right back.